Hello, it's Scott Manley here with episode 46 of Interstellar Quest, and we are flying away from Dres now at 8 kilometers per second, having just gathered a bounty of science from the tiny little moon. It is now time for us to turn our engines back on and head back to Kerbin, so we throttle up the engines and get a whopping, 0 newtons of thrust. I mean, you can see that our velocity is dropping incredibly slowly, but it's really not wanting to do that too quickly. Now, it turns out that because I'm so far out, the amount of energy I'm getting is not very high. And because I'm not getting a huge amount of energy, it means my deceleration is very, very slow. In fact, I did the math and it figured out that it was going to take me roughly 3 days of recording to turn this thing around. So, yeah, 3 days of non-stop recording at about 4 times regular speed wasn't going to be fun at all. So, let's go back to the Kerbal Space Center and do something to remedy this. First of all, I do have enough science to unlock one more node. Now we could get the electromagnet, we could get a pile of plane parts and some, mixed mode engines. We could get the computer core, which I guess would ultimately be interesting, but right now doesn't do very much for me. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the big ass engines so that I can build big ass rockets, although you'll find out it's not actually that helpful. So yes, what I was going to do to help myself was build a power plant on the runway, basically. This is 3 nuclear reactors all joined together, and you can see that it's beaming out a fair amount of power. But of course, that power is diluted by the vast gulf of space between the planet Kerbin and this spacecraft. But nevertheless, that should increase the total number of 3.75 plants that are powering this, and it gets my input power to about 25 megawatts, which may seem like a lot. However, it's a long way from the 1.21 gigawatts that we really want. If we just line this thing up just enough, fire up the engine, and you can see that as I sit and watch it, it ticks down ever so slowly. It's 3 times faster, but that still means it would take an entire day of more or less me sitting and micromanaging this. And you have to remember as well that we have to account for the rotation of the planet Kerbin, and this thing would occasionally drop signals and I would have to go back and restart it. It would not be a single event. It wouldn't be a single just lock it and leave it. So yes, I thought perhaps we could go back and upgrade things a little more. So yeah, using the power of copy and paste, we built this little nuclear power station. I don't know if I counted how many parts this is, but I like to call this the centipede station because it looks a lot like a centipede. Well, except for those ones at the back which haven't stuck their legs out and are falling apart. But this whole thing is beaming all its power into that, sending out roughly 50 gigawatts of power, and all the way out at Dres, that is leaving me 200 megawatts. And with that, our engine can kick up to speed, generating a whole 2.7 kilonewtons of thrust. Finally, something that will be somewhat acceptable. Now, it did take a fair amount of time. It did take a lot of micromanagement. It took a few hours, even at 4 times time acceleration, and I had to keep stopping and restarting it because I had to account for the rotation of the planet Kerbin. It also didn't help that as I was accelerating, or as you would time accelerate, it would say that you had 3 power plants, and then you would stop time accelerating, and it would say, "Nuh-uh, just kidding, you've only got 1." So you would have to muck around until you actually got good signal from 3 of them, and then you could throttle up your engine. And it would, I wouldn't say slowly, but it was slightly faster than otherwise. You can see that it's ticking down at about 2 meters per second, and that's of course with the 4 times time acceleration. So it was still going to take a couple of hours for me to not only kill this velocity, but send roughly the same, or direct roughly the same velocity back towards Kerbin so that we can return the science. See, there we are. Look, we've actually moved it from being on an escape trajectory to a trajectory that will bring it back to Kerbin about 200 years from now. I'm not going to wait that long because I will probably have invented the magical technology that brings us to the stars in 200 years. In fact, it would be kind of interesting to pass one of these spacecraft on their way out. So yeah, that was me. I more or less was playing Rogue Legacy while a lot of this happened. I would just fire it up, play it in the background, and watch as this apoapsis slowly worked its way down into manageable distances. So what I want to do is I don't want to just bring my orbit back, because that will still take a really long time to reach periaps. What I really want to do is go inwards at high speeds. And in this case, I want to swing around the sun, because I don't think I'll be able to catch the planet Kerbin. Although I probably have enough delta V, I just really began to run out of patience with how long this thing was taking. I had to make some corrections to the plane change, just to make sure that the nodes would actually line up with the target orbit. And as you can see, I start to line my... I think it's either the ascending or descending node. I don't know. We started to line it up there. And finally, after several hours of Rogue Legacy and thrusting and stuff in the background, we finally bring our orbits together 62 days in the future. I will no doubt be flying past the planet Kerbin at 8 kilometers per second, but we'll deal with that then. So given that I have this huge power plant, what else can I do with it? Well, here's a rocket entirely powered by one of those thermal receivers. So you see immediately it accelerates at about 9 Gs, but very quickly what happens is that the aspect angle relative to that massive power station gets very, very small, and we start losing our efficiency. Now, my plan here is I want to launch a satellite into orbit entirely using beamed power. No solid rocket boosters or anything else. So, we're going to go straight up initially, and as we've moved into this kind of shadow, as the angle has got so small, our power has dropped off and we're actually slowing down for now. As soon as we start turning over, and I'm afraid I have to be very careful turning this over, that I don't want to flip the whole thing. Not that there's anyone on board that would care. Okay, so we start to turn this over, and as we turn it over, just watch the input power start to rise. There, look, 100 megawatts. Whoa! Thermal power starting to go through the roof. Acceleration starting to rise as we are kicking ourselves sideways. Look at this. The velocity is starting to go up, and now we're accelerating again at about 3 Gs. Let's just tip that over a little more, see if we can get 4 Gs out of this. 4 Gs, 5 Gs, all from beam power, 6 Gs. And, specific impulse on this is pretty huge as well. It's still like a 825 meters per second specific impulse. Now, we want to boost this thing up into a relatively high orbit. What I'm going to do is put basically a long-range communication satellite up, because at some point I will have remote tech working again, and we will want one of these things. So the idea is I'm going to fire this thing up into a pretty steep trajectory, and once I release it, I'm going to turn around and land back at base, because I want this thing to be completely reusable, well, except for the fairing. So here we go. Let's get ready to ditch the spacecraft. Beautiful. And there we go. That's the satellite. It will continue on a ballistic arc. And this... well, I'm going to fly this back to base. You see that landing gear on there? I'm going to be totally optimistic and try to actually land on it. Now, turning around extremely slowly. I'm practically at orbital velocity, you notice here. 2 kilometers per second. But because this thing is hugely efficient, and because most of the power is coming externally, I should be able to turn this thing entirely around, and we're now 100 kilometers away from the base, At this point, I should be able to start killing our velocity. Look at that! It's like off the top of this G meter here. Over 15 Gs of acceleration from this thing. So the first thing I want to do is kill the lateral velocity, and then I will bring our vertical velocity down and we'll head back. And we have to do this really, really quickly because, of course, our spacecraft is on its ballistic arc and it's heading up towards apoaps. And we want to obviously fire our plasma engines at apoaps. We don't want it to fall back. Okay, so we're now heading more or less back to the target. And I want to accelerate this a little. Now, the other side of this is we don't want to hit the atmosphere going too fast. So I have to kind of balance my need to get back quickly with my need to not burn up in the atmosphere. Two very crucial things when you're dealing with space travel, right? Okay, so gonna just burn downwards. Come on. That's right. My vertical velocity is still too high. I really should concentrate on killing that. Oh yes, poor velocity. Always being killed at the hands of this evil rocket type person. I don't know. I was going to say rocket genius, but I'm not really. I'm just a rocket. Plug things together and hope things work. This is so cheating using this number of nuclear reactors. At some point, maybe in 0.24, we will have money to contend with. And this will no longer be an option. I will be in the poorhouse if I built a nuclear power plant of this magnitude. So come on, we're trying to kill the vertical speed, and because I'm pointing straight at the base, I basically have no acceleration. I get half a G of acceleration here. And turning a little gets worse. Come on, get better. There we go, 1G. Oh, and we're below 100 meters per second. Yes, and now we are going down. The real question is, can I target the Kerbal Space Center? Well, I think we're going the right way. It looks like we're going roughly the right way. I think it's probably going to rotate away underneath us, and that satellite is still on its way up. We do not have to get to it just yet. I think what I'm going to do is turn this around, and then we'll do a little bit of time acceleration. And the idea is, as we come down, once we get closer, we want to use the engine to brake our descent. Going straight down into the atmosphere, even at only 1 kilometer per second, can still be very dangerous. Even though it's not going nearly as fast as, say, the 2 kilometer per second entrance that we normally would use. Because we are going straight down, we get into the thicker atmosphere more quickly. So I want to reduce the vertical speed so that at very least we are not destroyed by the forces of the atmosphere. And look, we still have plenty of fuel here. I wonder if I could soft land this. Actually, I probably can't because I have... the fins are going to make the thing aerodynamically unstable, or aerodynamically very stable in a direction pointing towards the ground, which is not ideal if you want to land it. I think I will have to use those parachutes regardless. So... now down to 500 meters per second, and we are now switched to surface mode because we're 35 kilometers up. I think that is doing pretty well. Atmosphere is now at the 50%. It's not really 50%, but it's halfway across our logarithmic scale, and I'm losing it. Okay, now we are going nose first towards the ground. And we're now deep enough in the atmosphere that we can't quit without instantly killing this thing. We'll have to hope that the other spacecraft on its way to Apoaps still has plenty of time. Oh, what did I... oh yes, there's the parachutes. And I apparently ditched something that I didn't mean to. I hope nothing falls off. That would be unfortunate. Okay, here's the other thing. We are now heading towards the ground, and I'm wondering if these parachutes will actually open quickly enough. Gonna deploy the landing gear because that will actually slow us down a little. We're decelerating at about 3 Gs here. Oh dear. 300 meters per second. 200 meters per second. You know, with these real shoots, they open at 700 meters by default. And that means they have to slow me down in about 3 seconds, which means I won't be surprised if I plough straight into the ground at this speed. Oh, wait, something's loading. Apparently we're close enough to some debris, which means we must be close to home, because I only ever crash things near to home, right? Parachute's open! Come on! Come on! Yes! It does actually work, and I wonder if I have a strong enough signal to slow my velocity to nothing here. Okay, engine on. Oh! God, this thing is so sensitive. Like, almost no thrust will kill the velocity. Brilliant! And our satellite is still on its way to Apoap's. Quick! Let us kick it into action. Come on. Switch. Load. Beamed power launcher. The beamed power launcher is carrying a large satellite intended for use. Let's open these panels, because of course they will supply power. Let's open... Oh, wow, that's bumping my antenna a little. That's interesting that those things interact. Turn these over to point the right way. And I have to kind of turn this on its side so the antenna point down. And I'm going to point towards prograde marker. And we are still cruising to Apoap's. This has been an excellent launch. That fuel tank, I've obviously removed the oxidizer from it, and since I'm using it as a plasma fuel power source. There we go. And we're just going to adjust our power. I think that should be pointing backwards. That should give us plenty of... But 3 G's acceleration, not bad at all. Not bad at all. And that's very quickly turning our orbit from an elliptical one which lands into a circular one which places it high above Kerbin and able to, I don't know, do things, able to talk to those spacecraft that will be far away. I mean, as I said, I've not been using remote tech, but I think I need to keep launching the spacecraft so that when it comes back on, I won't find myself without a comms network. And so there we are, a launch entirely using beamed power. And so, how far can we take this? Well, we actually have a very important mission for Jebediah Kerbin. The Sun Skimmer is returning to Kerbin's sphere of influence, and it's going to fly through at about 8 kilometers per second. And it's carrying some scientific information from near the sun. So what we want to do is send Jebediah Kerbin up there to grab it and ideally bring it home. If not, he'll return home with just the scientific information, which is so valuable to our scientists. So yeah, Jebediah Kerbin is he's going to use a beamed power vehicle. Now, I mostly concerned myself with building the upper stage here, so this lower stage is essentially just a pile of solid rocket boosters. It's, utterly simplistic. It doesn't really matter. It's just going to be going as... It's just going to boost it up high enough that the plasma engine will give us enough thrust. Although, as you can see, a plasma engine can give several G's of thrust even at ground level. So this was a quick and dirty launcher that I came up with. Look at that. We obviously we have to launch at night because we are going to be going in an orbit which carries us more or less straight down over the South Pole, and we want to be moving the correct direction when the spacecraft flies by. I've already simulated the flyby of the Sun Skimmer, and it flies basically over the South Pole at about 60,000 kilometers, I think. Well, anyway, look, the engines are about to burn out. This is the simplest launch stage I've built. It gets me up to about 1,500 meters per second. Saved me actually having to design anything complicated. We ditched that, and here we are, plasma vehicle ready to go. We're 50 kilometers up. We need to be that high because, of course, we're deploying these radiators. We have the receiver antenna, which for some reason I messed up the Infernal Robotics control panel here. Hardly great. Notice that this is a new and upgraded Infernal Robotics install. Hopefully it fixes some of the bugs. We toggle propellant to using liquid fuel and activate our receiver. We get power and off we go. Look at that. And look at the way that thing accelerates. We could have totally launched with this. Anyway, we'll see how this mission goes in the next episode. Until then, I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.